It is 6:30 in the morning on Friday, April 24th, 2026, and the first light of dawn is breaking over Enid, Oklahoma. And what that light reveals is devastating. The Gray Ridge Estates neighborhood on the southern edge of this city of 50,000 people looks like something from a war zone. Houses that were standing at 8 o'clock last night, family homes with backyards and driveways and front porches, are now foundations with lumber scattered 200 yards in every direction. Vehicles have been flipped and deposited on top of debris piles. A school bus sits sideways in a field. Insulation, children's toys, furniture, photograph albums, kitchen appliances, all of it mixed together in a continuous debris field that stretches across multiple city blocks. National Weather Service survey teams are already on the ground, walking through the wreckage with GPS devices and clipboards, measuring debris indicators, photographing structural damage, and doing what meteorologists call a damage assessment. The methodical, painstaking process of determining precisely how fast the wind was blowing when a tornado destroyed something. And the preliminary verdict, delivered by the NWS Norman office before most of America, has had its morning coffee. EF4. Estimated peak winds of 170 to 175 miles per hour. A path 9.5 miles long, 37 minutes on the ground. The most violent tornado to strike the United States since an EF5 tore across Enderlin, North Dakota, on June 20th, 2025, and somehow, 10 people were injured and 0 people died. This is the April 24th, 2026 severe weather coverage as it happened. And the story of this day is not just about what happened the night before, it is about what is still coming. Because the weather pattern that produced the Enid EF4 on Thursday evening has not resolved, it is not gone, it is not weakening. The same synoptic scale system, the sprawling upper-level trough anchored over the western and central United States, the surface low pushing eastward, the warm moist Gulf air streaming northward into a region that is already saturated with atmospheric instability, is still in place as Friday morning dawns. The Storm Prediction Center's day. One outlook, issued at 4 in the morning Central Time on April 24th, makes the situation absolutely clear. Scattered, severe. Thunderstorms are expected Friday from parts of the southern plains into the Arklatex and lower Mississippi Valley. Large hail, damaging winds, and a few tornadoes will be possible. The greatest threat for supercells with very large hail, 2 inches or larger, should focus across parts of southeast Oklahoma to the Arklatex region. World Soccer Talk Arklatex, the convergence zone of Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. A region where the warm, moist air from the Gulf meets the cold front pushing out of the plains, where the atmosphere is primed and ready, where the thunderstorms that fired in Oklahoma on Thursday evening are now spreading their outflow boundaries southeastward and creating the mesoscale boundaries that new storm cells will use as focusing mechanisms through the day. Friday is day 2 of what the Storm Prediction Center has identified as at least 5 consecutive days of considerable, severe weather risk. And Friday's threat area is enormous. 13 million people are at risk Friday for severe storms from eastern Texas to the Mississippi-Alabama border. There are threats of hail, wind gusts of up to 60 miles per hour, and a few tornadoes. Transfer feed, 13 million Americans waking up on the morning of April 24th under a severe weather risk. And most of them are waking up to news coverage of an EF4 tornado that struck Enid, Oklahoma the evening before. The context that makes every storm warning feel more urgent, every siren more alarming, every darkening sky more threatening. Let us step back and walk through what Friday, April 24th, actually looked like hour by hour across the 13 states that were under some level of severe weather risk. The morning starts with the aftermath of Thursday's system still washing through the central states. The same cluster of storms that produced the Enid EF4 and the tennis ball, sized hail across Kay County and the significant damage in Joplin, Missouri, has been moving eastward overnight. As of Friday afternoon, a cluster of thunderstorms with frequent lightning, heavy rain, and gusty winds was moving through Arkansas, northwest Mississippi, and western Tennessee. Transfer feed. These are not the organized, discrete supercells that produced Thursday night's violent tornadoes. These are the remnant linear storms, squall lines, and quasi-linear convective systems that form when the overnight cool air stabilizes the atmosphere and the discrete supercells of the evening merge into a continuous line of storms. They are still capable of producing damaging winds, heavy rain, and QLCS, quasi-linear convective system, tornadoes, the brief, hard-to-warn-for twisters that spin up along the leading edge of fast-moving storm lines. As the line pushes through Arkansas and into the Tennessee Valley and lower Mississippi Valley, forecasters at the Storm Prediction Center are watching it closely. The southeasternmost portion of the convective line may re-intensify across the Ark-La-Miss as the boundary layer warms, with some potential for a secondary round of upscale growing storms into Friday night across generally the same region. This includes damaging winds and some tornado potential, primarily QLCS related, especially into the evening, via a somewhat stronger wind field. World Soccer Talk. QLCS tornadoes are the ones that kill people at night. They are brief. They are embedded in a fast-moving line. Of storms, they are difficult to see on radar until they are almost on the ground, and they give less warning time than the classic supercell tornadoes that produce photogenic funnels visible for miles. The National Weather Service offices from Little Rock to Memphis to Huntsville to Nashville are all in enhanced operation mode on Friday morning, ready to issue tornado warnings at the first radar indication of rotation in the approaching line. Back in Enid, Oklahoma, the human story of the EF4 is unfolding in real time. Governor Kevin Stitt lands in Enid on Friday morning and begins a tour of the damage with Mayor David Mason and county officials. Fox weather meteorologist Haley Meyer and the Fox Weather Beast crew are positioned just outside Enid, where a steady stream of emergency crews move into the city to support the immediate recovery effort. I saw a violent video of that active, violent stovepipe tornado, and it was fairly stationary for a good bit. That tornado held on for as long as it could, Meyer said. Springer A. Stovepipe tornado is one of the most recognizable and terrifying forms a twister can take. A perfectly vertical, cylindrical column of rotating air connecting the storm cloud to the ground, uniform in width from top to bottom, indicating a powerful and well-organized vortex with very little tilt. The video that storm chasers captured of the Enid tornado shows exactly this: a massive vertical stovepipe, 500 yards wide at its widest point, moving slowly, about 35 miles per hour, northeast through the edge of the city. Slow-moving tornadoes are more destructive than fast-moving ones because they spend more time at any given location. At 35 miles per hour, the Enid tornado was not racing through in seconds. It was grinding through neighborhoods over the course of minutes at each location. The families of Gray Ridge Estates experienced not a flash of violence, but a sustained roar, the locomotive sound that every Oklahoma tornado survivor describes, lasting long enough to feel interminable. Governor Stitt stands in front of the cameras in the Gray Ridge neighborhood, surrounded by debris fields where houses used to stand, and he says what everyone is thinking: thank the Lord that no one was killed here. We can always rebuild, but the loss of life would be devastating. B in sports. Senator James Lankford is on the ground too, and his assessment of what comes next is measured and sober. This recovery is not going to be measured in days or weeks. It is going to be measured in months and years. The families of Gray Ridge Estates are starting a process on April 24th, 2026, that will not end for a very long time. 40 families, in some cases with nothing but the clothes they were wearing when the sirens went off, their possessions distributed across the debris field, their insurance claims to be filed, their rebuilding permits to be applied for, their decisions about whether to rebuild at all in the same location to be made. Meanwhile, the Oklahoma Department of Emergency Management has activated its disaster response protocols. The state has set up a damage reporting portal at damage.ok.gov. The small business administration is being contacted about disaster loan programs. Volunteer organizations, from the American Red Cross to the Southern Baptist Convention's Disaster Relief Network to Team Rubicon, are mobilizing. And Governor Stitt has signed Executive Order 2026-17 declaring a disaster emergency for R. Garfield and K counties, effective for 30 days, unlocking state resources and beginning the process that may eventually lead to a federal disaster declaration from the president. At Vance Air Force Base, the situation is complicated. The base was struck by the tornado's outer circulation as the EF4 complex. A weather station on base recorded a gust of 107 miles per hour during the event. The base announced Friday morning that it would remain closed until power and water could be restored. By Friday afternoon, the base confirmed that all personnel were accounted for. No injuries had occurred on the installation, and the fitness center would open to provide assistance to personnel who needed support. The fact that an active United States Air Force pilot training base, Vance, is one of the primary undergraduate pilot training bases in the Air Force, where students fly T-6 and T-38 aircraft, sustained a 107 mile per hour gust from an EF4 tornado circulation and experienced no fatalities or serious injuries, is a testament to the base's shelter-in-place protocols and the effectiveness of the NWS Norman tornado emergency warning that gave base personnel time to reach protected areas. Now let us talk about the Friday threat itself in detail. The active, severe weather that is developing across 13 states, even as Enid is processing its damage and beginning its recovery. The Storm Prediction Center's convective outlook for Friday, April 24th, shows the primary threat area centered across what forecasters call the arc latex, the corridor where Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas converge, extending eastward into Mississippi and the lower Tennessee Valley. A slight risk of severe thunderstorms is in place Friday across a corridor covering Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, with scattered severe storms capable of producing strong tornadoes, very large hail, and damaging winds during the afternoon and evening hours. The highest risk zone is concentrated across a corridor from Dallas and Shreveport through Little Rock and into Jackson, Mississippi. Within this corridor, a few scattered severe thunderstorms are expected to develop and pose threats across all three primary hazard categories. A broader marginal risk extends outward to include Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Memphis, Nashville, Birmingham, and surrounding areas where isolated severe storms cannot be ruled out through the day. CNN, a slight risk, sounds mild. It is not mild. On the Storm Prediction Center's categorical scale, a slight risk, level 2 of 5, means that organized severe storms are expected, and impacts including large hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes are anticipated. The marginal risk areas extending to Memphis and Nashville and Birmingham mean that residents across a corridor covering hundreds of miles need to be weather aware through the day and into the evening. Cities named explicitly in Friday's threat area by the Fox Forecast Center include Tulsa, Springfield in Missouri, Shreveport, and Little Rock. These storms are expected to impact portions of northeast Oklahoma, southern Missouri, and northern Arkansas. Barca blow grains. Friday afternoon, supercells begin firing in southeast Oklahoma and northeast Texas. The atmosphere in this region is explosive. Surface dew points in the low to mid-70s Fahrenheit, which is exceptional for late April, indicating moisture levels and more typical of midsummer Gulf Coast conditions than spring in the southern plains. CAPE values in the 2,000 to 3,000 joules per kilogram range. Wind shear adequate for supercell development and rotation. The first severe thunderstorm warnings of the afternoon come out of southeast Oklahoma around 2 in the afternoon. By 3 o'clock, storm spotters are reporting tennis ball-sized hail, 2.5 inches in diameter, falling in southern Oklahoma. That matches the reports from the previous evening near Brahman, where a 4-inch hailstone was measured. Hailstones of 2 to 3 inches are large enough to punch holes through composite shingles, crack car windshields, and cause serious injury to anyone caught outdoors. Friday's storms fired up quickly, with supercells dropping a tornado and tennis ball-sized hail in southern Oklahoma. The Quantum Insider. The supercell that produces the tornado in southern Oklahoma is not the EF4 level organization of Thursday's Enid storm, but it is a genuine rotating supercell producing confirmed tornado damage and very large hail. NWS offices issue tornado warnings for portions of southeastern Oklahoma. Storm chasers, who have remained in the field since the previous day's chase, are repositioning southward to intercept. By mid-afternoon, the storm system's eastern edge is producing its most significant Friday impacts across the Ark-La-Mis region. The NWS offices in Little Rock and Memphis are issuing severe thunderstorm warnings for thunderstorms producing baseball to softball-sized hail and 60 to 70 mile-per-hour gusts. The storms moving through Arkansas are a mix of supercells and linear systems. Some of the supercells showing rotation signatures on radar that prompt tornado warnings for portions of central Arkansas. In northwest Mississippi, the line of storms that moved through overnight has pushed south and re-intensified with afternoon heating, and the NWS Jackson office is watching rotation signatures in the leading edge of the system. A tornado warning is issued for portions of northwestern Mississippi. In Tennessee, the storms are not yet organized, but the threat is building through the day. Cities included in Friday's threat area include Tulsa, Springfield, Shreveport, and Little Rock. Barca blow grainies, all of them receiving some level of storm activity during the afternoon and evening hours, all of them under the same synoptic scale pattern that produced the worst tornado in the United States in nearly a year, just 18 hours earlier and 400 miles to the northwest. Now, here is the bigger picture context that makes April 24th, 2026, significant beyond the individual storm reports. This day is embedded in one of the most active April tornado seasons in recent memory, and that context shapes everything about how forecasters, emergency managers, and the general public are responding to each new watch and warning. April 2020. 6 is being described as extremely active, featuring the massive April 17th through 18th. Outbreak of 80 confirmed tornadoes in the most recent April 22nd through 24th. Outbreak which included the Enid EF4. March 2026 ran very above average, driven by 3 major outbreaks. THE Quantum Insider. The April 17th through 18th outbreak, which produced 80 confirmed tornadoes across a 650-mile swath from Oklahoma to Michigan, was the largest single-day tornado outbreak of 2026 at the time it occurred. The 2 strongest tornadoes from that outbreak were both EF3 intensity and both occurred in Wisconsin, which is not typically where you expect the strongest tornadoes in a major outbreak, and EF3 in Ringel, southeast of Wausau, An EF3 in the southwest part of the state near the town of Cream. Wisconsin is not Tornado Alley, but in 2026, the upper Midwest has been one of the most active regions in the country. Over the past 2 decades, tornado activity has been shifting eastward into what is now called Dixie Alley, the corridor from Arkansas through Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee. Population density in Dixie Alley is roughly 3 times higher than traditional Tornado Alley, and these storms often strike at night, making them deadlier. Be in sports. The March 2026 outbreaks hit Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan hardest, confirming the eastward shift that climatologists have been documenting. On March 10th, an EF5 tornado struck Wells County, Indiana, with winds exceeding 200 miles per hour along a 14.6-mile path. It was only the second EF5 in the United States since 2013, after a 12-year drought of the strongest rated tornadoes. Be in sports. The 12-year EF5 drought that ended with Enderlin, North Dakota, in June 2025 was followed less than 9 months later by another EF5 in Indiana. 2 of the strongest tornadoes ever rated in the United States occurred within 9 months of each other in 2025 and 2026, and now the Enid EF4 in April 2026. The 2026 severe weather season, despite forecaster predictions of a near-average tornado count, has already produced a density of violent tornadoes, EF4 and EF5 rated. That is historically exceptional. Friday evening, April 24th, the storm system continues to move eastward. A widespread 2 to 3 inches of rain is expected through Tuesday from Missouri to Georgia, with localized totals of 3 to 5 inches or more possible across Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee. Barca-Blaugrain's flooding is now joining tornado and hail as the significant hazard in the system's wake. Rivers in the lower Mississippi Valley are already running high from previous rains, and additional 3 to 5 inch rainfall totals on saturated soil mean that flash flood watches and warnings will be issued alongside tornado watches across a broad region through the weekend. The compound hazard, severe thunderstorms plus flooding, is the scenario that emergency managers find most difficult to communicate, because the public tends to think of these as separate risks that don't occur simultaneously. They do. A family sheltering from a tornado in a low-lying area can emerge from shelter directly into a flash flood. The storm system producing April 2026's tornado outbreak is also producing the rainfall that will flood rivers across 5 states through the coming week. And then comes the forward look, the outlook that is in many ways the most alarming part of Friday, April 24th's coverage, because what is coming this weekend is potentially worse than what already happened. On Saturday, 7 million people from north-central Kansas to central Arkansas are at risk. Sunday, 12 million from Nebraska to northern Texas face severe storm threats. By Monday, 32 million people will be expected to experience severe storms from southern Wisconsin to northern Mississippi. MDPI, 32 million people. That is a population larger than Australia's entire national population, roughly the combined populations of New York State, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, all under severe storm risk on Monday, April 27th. Sunday and Monday have the potential to be the most potent days of this stretch. A level. 3 of 5 risk of severe thunderstorms is in place Monday from parts of Iowa and Wisconsin to Arkansas and Tennessee. All threats. Damaging winds, large hail and tornadoes, potentially ones capable of producing EF2 damage or greater, will be on the table. The Quantum Insider EF2 damage or greater. That means the Storm Prediction Center, as of April 24th, is already flagging the potential for violent tornadoes. Not just severe weather, not just wind and hail, but potentially significant tornadoes. In the Monday event, and the Monday threat is not the same geographic area as the Thursday and Friday threat. It is further east. A significant shortwave perturbation emerging from the southwest will pivot northeast of the middle and lower Missouri Valley into the upper Great Lakes region Monday through Monday night. The warm sector of an associated sub-1,000 millibar surface cyclone will become characterized by at least moderately large cape ahead of the dry line and cold front overspreading much of the middle Mississippi Valley during the afternoon into evening. World Soccer Talk. The middle Mississippi Valley, Illinois, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Arkansas. The densely populated Dixie Alley corridor where storms strike at night, where mobile home populations are high, where warning dissemination is complicated by terrain, and where the memory of the April 27, 2011 super outbreak, 340. 8 deaths, 1,173 tornadoes in 48 hours, still lives in every emergency manager's institutional consciousness. Here is what the April 24th coverage ultimately tells us about where we are in 2026's severe weather season, and what every person reading this needs to understand about the days ahead. A La Nina pattern that meteorologists expected to suppress tornado activity has faded faster than anticipated, and the atmospheric setup, replacing it, a persistent trough in the western United States driving cold air southward while warm, humid Gulf air streams northward, is one of the most productive patterns for severe weather in the central United States. The season has already produced an EF5 in Indiana, an EF4 in Oklahoma, 80 tornadoes in a single day. March ran well above average. April is running G, extremely active. And the 5-day stretch that began Thursday, April 23rd, with the Enid tornado emergency is not over as Friday evening closes. It is building toward Panis, what may be its most significant chapter, over Sunday and Monday. 13 million people at risk on Friday, 7 million on Saturday, 12 million on Sunday, 32 million on Monday. If you live anywhere between the Central Plains and the Ohio Valley and the Tennessee Valley, the message from April 24th is simple and urgent. This is not over. Stay weather aware. Know your local watches and warnings. Know where your shelter is. Know the difference between a tornado watch. Conditions are favorable for tornadoes and a tornado emergency. A confirmed violent tornado is moving toward a populated area, and you need to act immediately. The National Weather Service gave the people of Enid warning time on Thursday night. Their sirens sounded. Their emergency alert systems activated. Their preparedness culture kicked in, and 10 people were injured instead of hundreds dying. That outcome is what preparation makes possible. Subscribe to the channel so you get our continuing coverage as this pattern unfolds through the weekend. Stay safe out there. We will be watching every storm,